Brigadier Dr. R.K. Sharma, who has an impressive list of achievements and credentials, who is going to enlighten us on.
I'm thankful to Dr. Alabadia for inviting me to this session in Goa today. In fact, as the advancements and availability of ART is coming to the remotest corner of India, we have to think of protocols which are cheaper, which are patient-friendly, and which can be manipulated without much of investigative modalities which are available in the higher centers. So keeping that in mind, a lot of work is going on various protocols whereby we can make the protocols patient-friendly and cost-effective. So one of that is substitution of SCG in the last phase of follicle stimulation, and then see what is the effect of that. So I'm going to discuss that today in front of you. Since 2009, I think it's all right if it doesn't. Yeah, thank you. So since 2009, a lot of papers started coming, how to reduce the total dosage of FSH and thus reducing the costs. And we know what is the aim of our ovulation induction. It should be patient-friendly. There should not be any OHSS. We should have good quality of oocytes, fertilization rate, cleavage rate, blastocyst conversion, post-thaw survival, good pregnancy rate, and good carry-home baby rate, along with least abortion and congenital anomalies. And above that, it should be cost-effective. The GnRH antagonists, when we started using, they started fitting into our requirements because they significantly lower the treatment period, reduce the inconvenience to the patients, and there is no difference in terms of live birth rate. We were not satisfied with that. So there were improvement in the antagonist protocols also, in the form of giving OC pills before the antagonist protocol, or giving variable or fixed protocols. And now the focus is on lowering the cost by substituting the FSH with SCG. For ovulation induction, we started with HNG, urinary HNG, purified, highly purified HNG, FSH, urinary, recombinant FSH, recombinant LH, and now we're thinking of SCG for ovulation induction. For that, we have to understand a little bit what happens in a natural menstrual cycle. Just before the menstrual cycle, there is an increase in the FSH level, which causes recruitment of the follicles, and which are supported in the first phase of folliculogenesis. And then the FSH induces LH receptors, and LH also starts coming. It has got a role in creating a estrogenized environment in the follicles, the growing follicles, and those smaller follicles which do not have receptors, they will go into atresia. And once enough level of estrogen is attained, LH surge occurs. So this is a phase which we are interested, where there's a transition from FSH to LH, and can LH sustain that area of follicular growth? And if LH can do it, the surrogate LH, that SCG, can also do it. So that was the hypothesis. We know that FSH is the main regulator of follicular growth and maturation, but however, LH also has got a role besides doing only the ovulation trigger. That is the smaller antral follicles. It provides androgen substrate for conversion to estrogens. And on the larger antral follicles, when the receptors develop, these receptors are sensitive to both FSH, LH, and even to SCG. And this LH activity can be provided by HNG, by recombinant LH, or human-derived or recombinant SCG. These receptors, they develop by the follicle size 10 to 12 millimeter onwards. And these, the LH, when acting on these receptors, can have all the physiological functions of FSH on granulosa cells. And as the developing follicle grows bigger and bigger, it becomes less and less dependent on FSH and become more and more LH responsive. So as I said, it stimulates ovarian estrogen secretions. And then there is a worry. If you are giving LH early, would it cause progesterone secretion early? Will it cause luteinization? But it doesn't cause any untimely increment of follicle phase progesterone secretions. In fact, follicle phase serum progesterone levels were not found to be related to the amount of LH activity administered. That means even if you increase the dose of LH, the progesteronization or the luteinization wasn't there. To the contrary, the increased progesterone secretions were seen when only purely recombinant FSH was given. And studies also show that if we have low levels of LH, we have a poor or adverse reproductive outcome. So that means LH is important. And LH is capable of modulating the development of smaller ovarian follicles because less than 10 millimeter, they do not develop these receptors, and because of that, they have a more of androgenized environment and they go into atresia. So as the dose of LH would increase, the smaller follicle size they will decrease, and this is done through inhibins. And serum levels of SCG also are inversely correlated with the smaller follicles. That means if we give 50 IU or 100 IU or 200 IU of SCG, they will be inversely related to the smaller follicles. That means we can decrease the number of smaller follicles. Now, SCG is an alternative to LH because both are heterodimetric glycoproteins, and they also have same natural functions like to cause ovulation and to support the corpus luteum. That is why SCG is used as a surrogate for LH surge because of degree of homology between the two hormones. But SCG has got a slower clearance rate. It has got two phases, initially a rapid phase of 5 to 9 hours, and then a slow phase of 1 to 3 days. They have identical alpha subunits and cysteine contents, but how are the major differences in the beta subunits, the regulation of their secretions, and the pharmacokinetics of clearance? SCG has got a higher half-life, and it has got a greater affinity for the LH receptors. And it is almost 6 times more potent than LH. So keeping these in mind, people have been using or adding SCG to the FSH to the tune of a smaller dosages of 50 IU per day, and they found that after the 14 millimeter of size, there is acceleration of growth of these ovarian follicles, and thus reducing the FSH dosage and shortening the duration of stimulation. So it seems that there are recombinant LH and low-dose SCG are capable of stimulating the follicle development and maturation even when the FSH administration is discontinued. The previous papers, they were giving FSH plus SCG, and now they replace the FSH and then added low-dose SCG, and they found still the follicle growth can be controlled. And not only that, the estrogen levels do not fall, they keep on increasing even when the FSH is stopped. So the low-dose SCG maintains the growth of large antral follicles with the incremental estradiol secretions for up to 7 days when recombinant FSH was decreased or discontinued. The good number of oocytes can be retrieved after several days of low-dose SCG after even HMG, if the patient has an HMG, is discontinued. So with all these findings, with path-breaking papers which I mentioned, so these suggest that there is an interaction of recombinant LH or low-dose SCG with the LH-SCG receptors on granulosa cells in the last few days. And they are capable of fully supporting the follicle development despite discontinuation of FSH administration and even when the FSH serum levels are falling. So based on these studies, the concept was introduced that SCG can substitute FSH in the later stages of control ovarian stimulation in conventional IVF cycles, and it enables the completion of stimulation and is also cost saving. We all know that SCG is much cheaper than HMG and FSH. And not only that, we know that if we compare the downregulation in agonist and antagonist protocol, in antagonist protocol, it is more profound. So the endogenous LH levels fall very low in case of antagonist protocol. So the more the reason to give LH, and if LH, then why not SCG? So mid to late follicle phase supplementation by SCG was tried with promising results and cost cutting. So in 2009, the paper came by Blockhill et al., where they used 200 IU of SCG in the later phase of follicular development in antagonist protocol. And following that, many papers came, and subsequently, this year only, in June 2012, we had a meta-analysis. Now, to cut the story short, what did we find? In all these studies, the inclusion criteria were quite restrictive. They had the patients who were less than 36 years old, who were having regular menstrual cycles, who had a normal BMI, and they were coming for the first or a second attempt of IVF ICSI, and they were planned for day 5 single embryo transfer. And exclusion criteria was azoospermia, when the patient required PGD, or if the FSH basal levels were high, or PCO, endometriosis, or if there was a history of previous poor response. So in the first group, they continued giving recombinant FSH, and then they added GnRH antagonist when the follicle size was 14 millimeter. Here, instead of FSH, they stopped FSH and started giving low dose SCG of 200 IU every day. And then once the follicle size was more than 17 millimeter, they triggered with 10,000 IU of SCG, and then they compared the results. And what were the results? They found that there is a statistically lower requirement of FSH in the SCG group and in compared to the only FSH group, and which was quite a big value, from 1600 IU to 2100 IU. And though the number of mature oocytes retrieved were more in case of FSH group rather than SCG group, but the quality of oocytes was much better in the SCG group. And when we see the pooled analysis for clinical pregnancy rates, we find that there was statistically significant differences in favor of SCG groups compared with the recombinant FSH group. So probably this was compensated because we had better quality of oocytes, though the number was slightly less. But however, despite a higher clinical pregnancy rate, the live birth rate remained same in both the groups. And then there's always a worry. If you are giving SCG, would it increase the incidence of OHSS? Since in these particular studies, OHSS was excluded, but in other patients, there was no increase in the incidence of OHSS. Because the dosages which are used are much less than the one which you require for triggering the ovulation. And SCG-mediated LH effect allows the growth of only the larger follicles and atresia the small size follicles which do not have LH receptors. That is how probably it prevented OHSS in this group of patients. And it also created more estrogenized interfollicular environment that is correlated with the good quality of the oocytes and better embryo quality. And there were less smaller follicles, and there was a higher fertilization rate. And to nutshell, all these studies showed that use of SCG may have advantage in reducing the FSH dosages, and it is as effective as giving only FSH with the cycle. It may reduce the incidence of HSS. However, since these were having a restrictive inclusion criteria, we require larger studies with lesser restrictive inclusions. Thank you very much.